Part 4. Logic. Now that we understand why communication is challenging and why it matters, let's talk a little bit about how we can achieve greater clarity. The first step to communicating clearly is to think clearly. And to think clearly, we need to understand how our ideas connect. The pyramid principle is the art of structuring and communicating logic in a way your audience can easily understand. And what the pyramid principle essentially seeks to do is create horizontal and vertical groupings between ideas so that anything underneath a grouping is a summary of the ideas below, like in the example where you have a department and a set of teams. And then horizontally, any ideas that are on the same layer have a clear logical connection, such as a deductive argument, as shown below, or in the grocery example, where you saw apples and bananas classified under fruit. There's a reason why these ideas are on the same layer versus layers below. Conceptually, there are 4 ways of grouping our logic. 1, deductive reasoning, if this, then that. 2, cause and effect, where things are a direct result of each other. 3, a division of parts, where essentially you're taking a whole and breaking it down into its components. And then lastly, which is a very common approach to logical grouping, is categorization of like things, which is where all the things in the group have some sort of shared attribute, such as they are all steps to fix a problem, or all reasons for why dogs are great pets. Identifying what logic we're using allows us to pressure test our logic to make sure it's complete. Here's an example. Our current approach yields poor launches. As the effect, you can have cause 1, which is the concept, cause 2, the technique, and what's cause 3? You probably guessed it, execution. While execution may not have necessarily contributed to our poor launches, understanding what logic we're using allows us to check the execution, just in case. Here's a quick example pulled from 𝗬𝗵𝗏, who was the former VP of Product at Netflix, in his essay on Netflix's strategies back in 2005. It's an example of bottoms-up thinking. Based on the projects they felt were important to complete, they wanted to identify if there was a logical connection tying these projects together. The answer? All of these projects help to make Netflix easier, and identifying this underlying need could help point them to more projects that they might have not previously considered. Here's the last example. If the parent is increased revenue growth, is there anything here that doesn't belong? This one's a bit harder. The answer here is increase the percentage of power users. When you look at the other levers, reduce churn, increase signups, increase revenue per user, each one of these are what the book calls collectively exhaustive and mutually exclusive levers, or MECE. Whereas increased percentage of our power users is an overlapping lever and may touch all 3 of these different areas, the other levers are completely independent. While relevant, the percentage of our power users is a different grouping. To put it simply, the pyramid principle forces you to create clear relationships between your ideas. And in distilling the parent insight that captures the underlying details, you move up levels of abstraction so that you have fewer items that your audience needs to grasp, while making sure that your logical relationships stay complete, all the way to the top of the pyramid, which is your point. One way I like to think about this is essentially you're packaging your information up so that by the time you have your rational recommendation at the very top, you've been able to translate it in a way that's easy for people to carry in their minds. Now that you've learned to synthesize detail to find your parent message, we reach the most important part: what to do at the top of the pyramid in order for someone else to receive it. I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk about the final step, delivery.